Slap the like button. Subscribe. But for real, definitely slap the like button. You know how to do it. If you didn't, you wouldn't be here. So, welcome. Good evening. Here's the most recognizable sound in the world. If you only knew, if you only knew. I need to get my kombucha started back up. That's what I need to do. Need to get my kombucha cranked back up. So check this out. Let me teach you a little something something about kombucha. I started the kombucha months ago, back when I was in Florida. I started a batch of kombucha about 11 weeks ago, I believe. Yeah. So I started about 11 weeks ago, and it's a very large container um that I put the kombucha in. And all of this process was shown on my Patreon channel and all that fun stuff. But 11 weeks ago I did a green tea, no, yes, green tea, sencha green tea uh, batch of kombucha. And I didn't bottle it fast enough when we were in Florida for it to be able to be used, so it was turning into vinegar. I stored my SCOBY in this large container, and and then I drove 1,500 miles from Florida to Iowa, and continued to ignore my SCOBY, continued to ignore it. And here's the fascinating thing: the SCOBY is now about that thick. It started out about that thick. It's now about that thick. The surface of this SCOBY is so clean, just smooth, clean, solid, no bubbles, just one solid sheet of just SCOBY. It's it's the most symbiotic colony of bacterial yeast I ever have seen. Seriously, seriously. These colonies of bacterial yeast are in symbiosis beyond all belief. Well, you came back at a good time. So I'm describing.
I heard bacterial yeast in symbiosis, like you would not believe.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm discussing my kombucha that I um, that I had started down in Florida in my ongi is still, it has been untouched for all this time. And the kombucha slash vinegar, kombucha vinegar that the SCOBY's been sitting in for the last about 11 weeks has turned into just a beautiful display of just clean, smooth. The SCOBY grew to about that thick. It's got to be a good solid 2 inches thick. Um, and I tasted the kombucha vinegar yesterday or the day before. Um, and I was like, I just, whatever. We'll see what happens. As clean as the SCOBY was, I'm like, yeah, I'll drink that. I'll see what it's like. So,
Hmm.
you've drinking apple cider vinegar before?
Yes.
Okay. So I told my wife the kombucha right now tastes like a slightly watered down version of apple cider vinegar, but with with the same level of vinegariness though, but
Hmm.
not painful, right? If you drink apple cider vinegar
Oh, it
straight,
burned.
it makes
Yeah.
your eyes tear up. That's why I mean slightly watered down, like 25% water, 75% ACV.
Hmm.
That's what the kombucha currently is like. If I added sugar, might be able to get a little bit more tang and tart out of it. But the point is, kombucha is extremely resilient. I mean, almost on the verge of 3 months, and
Yeah, and through a move.
a move with extreme varying temperatures, and now without AC, which definitely affects the way that the kombucha lives.
So
I'm
heat is bad for it.
No, actually, heat just makes it grow faster. So if you're in if you're in northern Minnesota, or okay, forget where you're at. If the inside of your house is 65 degrees on the regular, which whatever, hypothetically, okay,
Hmm.
65, then your kombucha is going to take 2 weeks, 2 weeks, maybe three, maybe even four, um, to
Depending on the variations of acidity and
mature, and
yeah.
how much starter are you putting in there, all that. But if your house is on the regular, like 81, then you only need to ferment your kombucha for like 2 or 3 days, maybe
Really?
maybe four. But if your house is the normal 72 to 74 degrees, you're gonna it's gonna be that 4 to 6 day range.
Huh.
But yeah, so the warmer it is, if you put it like 95, then we're talking 24 hours. Yeah, you can crank it. You can definitely crank it.
All
But
right. I'm
anyway,
gonna mute real quick. I got kids talking to me.
I got you, man. Alrighty. So while Charles performs his uh, Candyman necessities, I think he can hear me, but we can't hear him. That's what makes life a little fun sometimes. Um, Cal farts, Bear. I think I remember the last time you were hanging out, you were calling everybody new names. It was very interesting. What are you growing kombucha in? So I was
Can you
brewing.
hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. I was brewing my
Okay.
my kombucha in an ongi, which is a Korean clay dish pot jar. Um, it's about this big. My ongi is about this big around and about that tall. It's got a lid, heavy clay lid. Um, it's used for making kimchi, and I just sanitized it and repurposed it. I'll make kimchi in it again sometime, but it just happens to be a very convenient vessel for all fermentation, really. But I appreciate the opportunity to make kombucha in my ongi, because I like to say words from other languages.
It's always
Um,
fascinating.
yeah. So little bit of
Like,
little bit of good news.
okay.
My father sold. Um, this is going to sound really sarcastic, but it's not extremely sarcastic. You'll understand with context why it's not overly sarcastic. I had a truck that I bought for $3,000. Let me check my math on that. Yeah, $3,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the way that I bought that truck was the retard way. Let me explain. I PayPal'd my mom with a credit card, and then she transferred the money to my bank. That's what I did. And that's how I bought a truck with cash I didn't have.
Fair enough.
So I did that how many years ago? I was in Asheville, so it was before I moved to DC. So it was 4 years ago. 4 years ago. West was like a couple of months old. So not quite 4 years ago. 3.5 years ago, whatever the case. So 3.5 years ago I did that, and then I moved to DC and I had to get rid of the truck, and I gave the truck to my sister. I didn't sign it over. I just gave it to her for her to be able to use because she didn't have a vehicle for going to work and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Kombucha is extremely easy, by the way, Cal Farts Bear. And the Cal Farts Bear, I know you have like 15,000 followers on some social media thing of some sort, so please invite all your awesome friends. I'm looking at your chat when I should be looking at the camera, but I'm not a weatherman and I'm not lying to you, so that's why I don't always look at you, which is kind of the opposite of what liars do, isn't it? Liars typically are like,
I can look right in your eyes and tell you an untruth without blinking.
yeah. Um, wait, what's going on?
I don't know.
I think I just got a super chat without the super chat part, so
Oh, okay.
yeah, thank you for that. Um, so if there's a message attached to it, I'll look at it in just a minute. Let me finish.
Your story about the truck we were at, you gave it to your sister
Thanks,
because
Cal Farts. Okay, so I gave it to my sister. She had it for like 2 weeks, and it fell apart on her. Like everything about it, the brake line snapped, the a tire deflated randomly. It just fell apart instantaneously. I had driven this truck 5 days a week. It's all good. I had driven this truck like 6 days a week. Um, like th- like 30 miles, 20 something miles, but almost 30 miles from Canton, North Carolina to Asheville, North Carolina, back and forth 5 days a week, and then some on Saturdays, um, or whatever, for like 5 months.
mm-hmm.
And then I give it to my sister
And it's
and
broken in 2 weeks.
in
Yeah.
2 weeks, and I'm just like, uh,
How?
sorry. You know, she's complaining to me that I gave her a crappy vehicle and she could have died. I'm like, yeah, gave that to you free of charge to use. Sorry that happened. Um, so that's the kind of um,
Yeah.
interesting situations to try and navigate emotionally, relationally with family members that I'm sure most of us are familiar with. But anyway, so you can imagine that was literally 3 years ago that all that went down. It's been sitting in my dad's driveway for these 3 years with a pop tire and just collecting mildew and leaves and looking a mess. And remember, I originally spent 3K on this, and I got the brake. Awkwardly enough, the brake line is what rusted and broke and all this stuff. But I had actually replaced all the calipers and brake pads on this vehicle, um, which was like about a $290 job, which is actually a really good price if you think about it compared to I don't know, there's a dude in Asheville that charged a really fair rate in my opinion. Um, I could tell you where he's at if I saw a map, but I don't remember the name of the place. But anyway, um, so I had like $3,300 in this vehicle, but it sat in my dad's driveway for 3 years. And he had it looked at by several mechanics, and they said, nope, replacing the hard line brake lines, um, it's totaled. It's worthless. It'll cost more money than it's worth to even get it back up. Engine's fine. Tires were new.
Right.
The brakes were new. It's a truck, which, well, by the way, for reference, this is a Chevy S10. just
Okay.
for reference, which is a novelty truck that I was under the impression, and based on my research, is a truck that a lot of people love to have just as a beater.
Yeah.
Uh, anyway, anyway, um, well, he finally sold it apparently today for 10 payments of $75 over the course of 5 months. Um,
Wow.
um, I just like this is what I told my dad. I said, "Dad, I'm glad that the vehicle's finally off your property." And because it's frustrating, it's a little sad. You don't want to do anything that causes a burden or any difficulty for the ones you love. And
Right.
yeah, so I'm glad that happened, and it is a blessing. But I just thought that the conditions, it sounds like somebody in my situation.
Yep.
Um, they like I get paid twice a month, and I can afford $75.
A
Uh,
paycheck.
that's that's what's going on, and I mean, I'm not laughing at their situation, or that they can't come up with $750. It's just it is. Here's what makes it a little funny. If it was a working vehicle, it would be like, oh yeah, dude needed a vehicle. It's a blessing to him. But this is $75 for a parts vehicle or a fixer upper or a project truck. So usually when people venture out and do projects, they don't make payments on a project vehicle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's what actually makes it kind of unusual. However, my dad did the smart thing. Um, Not that I doubted it. Actually, I did doubt it for a minute, but um, love my dad. But well, there's no but there. I just wondered if I don't know. He trusts people less than I do, so I don't even know why I would have wondered if he. But anyway, he's retaining the title until it's paid off. So, which is what you're supposed to do
When someone
when
does a lien against it. Yeah.
when the transaction's not complete. So, hey, Froze moments. Yeah. So this was a 2000 S10. Yeah, but a 94 S10 V34 exactly. It was this was a V6. It had power. It was fine. And all these mechanics, and he had multiple mechanics telling him it's not worth replacing the brake lines. And I'm just like,
Seems insane to me.
I agree because I'm just like, listen, the parts had to have been like $400 or $500 max, and supposedly the labor is retarded, but like a lot of people don't care because they know how to do it, or they'll just look it up on YouTube. And you're trying to tell me that, see, at the time, I'm like, listen, I should be able to get 1,500. I should be able to get 1,000 bare minimum. 750 ain't too far away in reality, but hypothetically, I still yeah, I didn't ever pay that truck off. I bought it and I own it, but the credit that was attached to the purchase. Um, so I was like, let me just recoup at least. But anyway, so it's kind of funny, um, kind of interesting. But it's not mine. It wasn't my truck anyway. I mean, it wasn't anymore. I signed it over to my dad a while back. Just like the land. Um, because you know, no what 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 do we call that? Um, when you get something from somebody but they expect something in return. I guess
Oh,
the old school term for that is actually the meat grinder gift. I don't know if you know that metaphor. So
uh-uh.
you familiar with that one? And by the
No.
way, I did invite like four other people tonight. But people are working and all that good stuff. So, um,
Yeah.
but the meat grinder gift is this: a man gets his wife a brand new $300 meat grinder. The joke there is like top of the line, easy to turn. You just put the meat in, out comes ground beef, whatever, right? The joke about the meat grinder gift is the fact that who benefits from that, right? It's like getting your wife a blender, it's like getting your wife an iron. It's it's
Yeah.
who's the one that's benefiting from that, and that's called the meat grinder gift. And
A washing machine.
what's that?
A washing machine.
Well, that benefits the whole family, and that's not a meat grinder gift. I'm talking about, okay, it'd be like buying it'd be like buying your spouse a bottle opener so that they can open the bottles that they hand to you when you want another one. It's absurd in reality.
Yeah.
What's another example? I mean, meat grinder is one example, but there's got to be more explicit. I mean, my father was the king of meat grinder gifts. He would buy, well, that's not true. My mom bought that for him and then used it. Like the massager things, the back massages and all that. But I don't know. There's some dudes that will buy things that they exclusively benefit from, but they buy it as a gift for somebody else, and it's like not exactly a gift, more of a burden.
Yeah.
My first phone. Maybe it wasn't my first phone. It wasn't my first phone. It was my second or third phone actually. But it was I used to do, like when I started out, I had it was the bar candy type phones. I didn't have flip phones or any of that, but they were called bar candy style. And they were technically with the buttons, right, and the tiny little screen for text and to see what number was calling. So my first smartphone, I actually was sad and disappointed because I felt like um, it was a burden. I was like, oh, awesome. Now I'm gonna have a huge phone bill, which
Yeah.
ages me, right? I wasn't a teenager. Well, maybe I was 19 still, but it was a Christmas present, and I was just like, oh man, now my phone bill's gonna be like 30 instead of 30. It's gonna be like 70 or whatever in the world. I don't know. I can't remember that. That was a long time ago. All right, so tonight's topic, now that we're done talking about the most ridiculous, I mean, it's God's grace that that truck is no longer junking up my dad's property, which is tonight's topic. What's the point of grace?
Mm. So, like before, I was telling you, there's basically two camps when it comes to grace. And the more I think about it, the more they're really kind of opposed to each other. Um, and one is that grace exists so that you can sin. Um, and the other would be
That
that
sounds
grace is
like
there.
I'll let you finish. I'll let you finish.
Yeah. And the other one is that grace is there for when you sin. Like, and you would think that one of them sounds absurd, but there is a large portion of Christianity that follows the first one.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yes. 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 Absolutely. With the mindset of for freedom, He has set us free. It's in the Bible. It's in the Bible. It's for
yeah,
freedom. He has set us free. It's in the Bible. You got to read your Bible. It's in there. He wants us to
well,
be
and
free, yo.
it's this mentality
Which
that
is true.
Jesus
He does want us to be
has.
free. You don't
Yeah.
understand. You have to listen. With every conversation, with every theological idea, thing that you're confused about, thing that you're troubled by, you must define your terms. You must
Hmm.
define your terms. What does freedom mean? So, the verse that keeps on coming up for reasons unknown. One of the weeks I was at church, and I was in a conversation with somebody the other day. By the way, you know him.
Mm.
He knows you. His name is Vern.
Yeah,
Um,
Fern Schwartz.
yeah, I don't know who he is in relation to that establishment over there, but a church, guys. It's a church. But um, I don't know what he does, his role, but he was trying really hard to get us to go to that church. It was kind of funny. He's like, so you're going here now? I was like, no, we're not going here now. We go to the same church as the Myers. And he's like, oh, okay. And then, but before that, he was like, so where are you guys going to church?
Mm.
Wait, so and I was like, we're going in Ames. He's like, wait, so you live in Ames? I'm pretty sure he already knew that I lived in Radcliffe. Um, so he's like, so you live in Ames? I was like, no, no, we live here. Oh, it was funny, he's older, he's not being too rude or ridiculous, but here's
Mhm.
the verse that I was trying to get to. Um, and it's in Matthew, I believe. It is. It's like Matthew 8. Um, uh, it's a unique verse, by the way.
Hmm.
It's what John the Baptist said. Um, what is going on? Come on, come on, come on! Don't do this to me. Behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world, all the sin of all the world. Um, so that verse has been used to justify universalism.
Mm.
Behold the Lamb of God shall meet you in the day. Was it um, blah blah blah? I was looking up different articles and stuff, but trying to understand what exactly is leading people down that trail and what they mean by it's all about define your chart. Excuse me, that was just an offshoot of trying to clarify why you need to
Yeah.
define your terms. All right, Ian Bear Pig, have a good evening. Um, so
But it's been something I've been kind of in thought about lately, and it's this whole mentality of you got to say this prayer, you got to do this thing, you got to confess your sins before God, and now you're saved. And then your natural instinctive next question is, so now what do I do? They're like, do? You don't have to do anything. Like you're saved. But
yeah.
yeah, but what do I do with that? Like what's the next step? Like there has to be a next step, and it's like, nope. Now you just rest in grace.
Oh
It's
well,
like
that's not what the Bible says. Gives
right,
us
and it's
some
like,
explicit next steps. Um,
but baptism would be one of the first.
uh, well, yeah, as far as a behavior goes, an action that we have to fulfill if we can.
Right.
By the way, um, it's it's interesting. I was hearing or listening to somebody recently say,
But
uh,
I mean, true or false? You have heard that the scenario that I just set up, true or false? You've heard that preached in a church before.
I don't think that I've heard it explicitly stated that grace was created or grace is provided so that we can sin. I don't think I've ever heard
No,
it.
no, no. It's not stated in that way. But that's
No,
the
I've seen the behavior.
underlying.
Oh, I've seen the behavior. Grace
Yeah,
is
the
grace is
underlying
there to catch
assumption is
us,
that grace
and
is
this is
there
how
so
they
you
say
can
it.
just
This is
do
how they
whatever
would
you want.
this is how they would say it. Well, it kind of leans on the other one, but grace is there to catch us when we fall. Um, but that's kind of on the other side, isn't it?
A little bit, but that loosely ties up the idea of, well, I mean, you just live your life and you just try to be the best person you can be, and grace will just cover the rest.
That is
Okay.
that is that is just pure deism. That's that monotheistic therapeutic deism. That's exactly what that is. That is, here it is. What you just said. Do your best. God will take care of the rest, which rhymes, by the way, which is kind of funny. That
Yeah.
is boomer religion. That is all boomer. That's 100% the mentality of the boomers. Don't don't hey listen, don't offend anybody. Just live your life. You do you. By the way, I'm colorblind. I don't see race. Listen, I'm just going to do the best I can. That God's got the rest. Which the thing
Is that like
about
the Jesus take the wheel mentality?
the thing about these comments is it's like I've said this many times before on this channel. Lies are lies. Lies are swallowable lies because they have elements of truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's about context and where you're taking that and what you do with that. So whereas grace is absolutely there for when, not if, but when we sin, that is no, but that's not necessarily why grace exists actually. That's not necessarily why it exists. I would say, this is how I would phrase it. I would say that grace exists because it's in God's nature for grace to exist. That's how I would phrase it. Grace doesn't exist because of us.
Yeah.
And to say so is patently absurd. I mean, it's beyond patently absurd. It's just egotistical, um, beyond belief, and it's a scary thought that somebody would think that God does something in response to our nature that literally defies
Who he is
who
almost.
he
Yeah.
is. That
Yeah.
it would defy what makes him God. So bad idea. Um, Sorry, I get distracted by things sometimes, and I'm like, I want to measure these rafters because I think that this one is an inch shorter than the rest, and they just did that because they worked from opposite ends, and they were like, well, we did the math, but this one, just go with it, man. It's 1890, bro. And they talk
Mm-hmm.
like that in 1890 with, but instead of
Just go
bro,
with it.
they
It's
would say
1890.
they would
This is the
say
modern
instead of bro, they would say brodakaya or broseph.
Brodekai.
Out here, man, we've walked through that cemetery, and there are some names in that cemetery I've never seen in my entire life. Um, I'm at the local
Does not
homecoming football game, just saying what's up and God bless. So Froze Moments literally took a break to say what's up while he was at a football game. What a guy! What a guy! And he's gone.
froze moments.
Cal Farts, he left. Froze Moments, he left. Ian Bear Pig, he left. And it's just a broadcast for the world to watch later, I guess. I mean,
All right.
oh, by the way, I don't have to be big the entire time. Here, I'll give you the spotlight there. There you go.
Oh, sure, whatever. But it's I told you this one can get pretty deep, like because it eventually you're gonna end up back at the character of God and the nature of why grace needs to exist. But like you start thinking about the underlying like so how far does grace extend? Like, is there a point at which it's no longer grace anymore? Like that you're just taking advantage of it? Like, so it like to me it becomes a then it's like a like when where Paul talks about it and he's like, is grace for us to just live our lives and be who we want to be? Like, no, like grace is there for when you mess up, but should you take advantage of it? Absolutely not. Like you should be trying your absolute hardest to not offend God and to keep his commandments. But you're gonna mess up, and that's why grace is there, because you're going to mess up. But like, we shouldn't be like, oh, I'm gonna mess up, so I'm just gonna rely on grace and just keep doing what I'm doing. He's like, God forbid. That's definitely not what you should be doing. But then it's like, I don't know, my brain starts getting into the intricacies of it. Like, at what point are you taking advantage of it?
It, you you usually will know that, usually, unless I mean honestly
Yeah, and I'm of the
that's the
opinion that
purpose of the
it's
Holy
going to
Spirit.
change. It's going to change person to person, because no one person is going to have the exact same convictions, or like, as the person next to them. So
No,
there's like, yeah.
and interestingly enough, I think in some ways there are things that are not. I think that there's plenty of evidence in the Bible to state that there are things that are not that are sin to some, but not sin universally.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that the Helper, the Holy Spirit, is part of who helps us to determine whether or not we are out of God's will. Um, because, for instance, it could be literally a sin for an individual to live in the state of Iowa as a complete, broad sweeping, general for that person because of circumstances that God knows in their life. That's an extremely ridiculous example, but um,
Jonah living in Israel while he was supposed to be in Nineveh.
there you go. That's kind of what I mean. Exactly.
Yeah,
Thank you for actual
that would have
biblical
only
references
applied,
to back
but
up.
that would have only applied to Jonah.
Yeah.
Period. Ever. Like,
Well, maybe not ever, but yeah, I mean for what we
in
have.
the exact circumstance that God wanted him to
Yeah,
fulfill.
exactly. Exactly. So the about grace, it's not currency.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the if you because there's not I don't think that there's a good metaphor that you could like you can't use it because it's not yours to give,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's not a transactional thing. It's more of obviously something that's outside of us that's given to us um, beyond. And that's another interesting thing about grace. It's not something that we really ask for. I mean, we do ask for it, but I don't think it's something that we need to ask for,
No.
transactionally.
Yeah, and I'm glad to see that your brain's going the same kind of direction that mine has been going with it, because it's like, forgiveness is what you ask for when you
Yes.
realize, oh, I did know about this and I've been doing this anyways. I'm gonna go ahead and tell God that I'm sorry for this and ask for that forgiveness. But the grace applied the entire time. You never asked for it.
I mean, grace is all encompassing as well because grace is literally the what was his name? Jonathan Edwards. That was his name. Sinners in the hands of an angry God.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that is that is the that is an excellent sermon to describe God's grace that we are constantly by God Himself, being held back by God Himself. He is restraining Himself because of His own nature and grace from His also nature of justice and righteousness from destroying us for our sin.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that conflicting nature, think of it like, I mean, I'm not going to say that God is in a balance amongst Himself by any means. God is I would stay away from any verbiage that would go
Categorization of,
or that would
you
lean
know.
anywhere towards the word balance because it just reminds me a little bit too much of the yin and yang thing and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, not a good plan. Um,
Which is just the Chinese depiction of flat Earth. I'm just throwing that out there.
Um, by the way, I listened to Devin Stack's Black Pill's video on the ham radio, and I was like, that is totally going on our workshop. Um, we we'll have to use him as a consultant because there's a lot to the ham radio thing. But I was very well educated from that video. It was fascinating. I don't.
I keep forgetting to sub them. I really need to go sub them because that channel has so many good things on it. Like,
Well, yeah, he's practically a preacher. I mean, maybe that's going a little too far, but I I'm really enjoying his stuff. But anyway, I listened to the ham radio thing, and I had a point about the ham radio thing.
I
Oh,
don't know. I
yeah.
yeah,
So he said the ham radio technology it, and the necessity for how you have to measure your antenna instantly proves the curvature of the Earth. Instantly, mathematically, instantly. He can drive down the road. He can raise his antenna 4 inches and drive down the road and get a broadcast to a certain point and then raise it and no more past that point and then raise it another and get another and keep that like over and over again and just repeat and it follows a perfect mathematical it coincides perfectly with the curvature of the earth models that we have. It substantiates those claims perfectly. I thought it was interesting. It's not tonight's topic, but I did think it was interesting.
that's
Um,
funny. And there's no way that could be a correlation to just distance away from receiver.
um, because you can, no, because you can also go up. You can get on a ladder, and the same thing works. So you can go up, and it
No,
works.
I'm not denying that fact. I'm just saying, like, that the how far the antenna needs to be in the air doesn't have anything to do with distance. It's
No,
definitely has to do with curvature.
yeah, because you can go up, which isn't decreasing distance.
No, but it would
It's
be
changing the angle.
interesting. I'll have to do some looking into
it
that. That's
it wouldn't even make
cool.
sense on a flat plane for up to change anything because if you have technically if it's a flat plane and you're well let me make myself big real quick. If you're on a flat plane and you go here and that's this where the signal stops, if you were to go up on that flat plane you actually have increased the distance.
Hmm.
So for it to start working, for you to increase the distance wouldn't actually make logical sense. Also with ham radio, apparently objects, it depending on the frequency and all that stuff, which he explains in pretty decent detail, um, the way the frequency goes through objects and stuff like that, depending on where it's at. But anyway, that's kind of logical. You go up, you've created a different angle, and you're actually further away as a anyway.
Hmm.
Um,
That's
so,
fascinating. I'll have to do some looking into that.
um,
That'd be one.
whereas,
That'd be one to bring up to some people that have some brain power, at least.
yeah. Anyway, ironically, on a round surface, if you lose signal right here and you go up, I actually don't. I'm trying to think about the curve. That's some trigonometry stuff right there. I don't know if you're actually even changing. I don't know if you're changing the distance at all on a.
It would make it would make for because it's really only going to
I don't know.
work as you're so much distance away, and then at some point it's going to stop working. So it would have a maximum range that it would that would have effect for, and then it
You
would
can
just
talk
not.
to. I think that you can talk to people in Europe on ham radio though, like on, not on the exact opposite, but because it I don't know. There's different frequencies in the way that it works. Some bounce off and some don't. And anyway, he's talking about there's H HF, VHF, and UHF for
Hmm.
high frequency, very high frequency, and high frequency. Um, and
Very
you
familiar with that terminology.
Okay, so the UHF and VHF is for close by, and HF is for extreme long distances because it's the furthest. So I think HF is the one that bounces off, but I don't remember exactly. I'm not an expert. Go listen to Black Pilt's video on it. It's fascinating stuff. But there was I only actually brought that up because of the flat Earth comment with the yin and yang.
Mm,
Um, so back to the thing about grace and how it's non-transactional. It's part of who he is, but that's also in conflict of who he is in regards to his vengeance and righteousness. Um, if any thinking person would um, logically determine that it would be not a good idea, it is the most logical thing to conclude that it's not a good idea to, if even if there, well, maybe it's only logical because we understand things in regards to equilibrium and balance.
mm,
So on one, so this is me being a stillman argument for myself because I do that regularly. On one hand, it would be logical to say it wouldn't be a good idea to disrupt or test. It also says in the Bible to not test the Lord your God. So um, maybe there's some substantiation to that. So on one hand, it would make logical sense that you wouldn't want to disrupt and test his grace limits or his vengeance threshold and all that.
mm.
On the other hand, who are we to think that we would ever
Yeah, I get where you're going with that. Yeah,
actually change him to or break him? Oh, I've lost my patience with you. However,
I mean,
however,
there is examples of
it
that
kind of
happening.
has happened a couple of times. Um, so so on
On catastrophic consequences.
so on one hand, we have a God that is the same yesterday, tomorrow, and forever, today and forever. And he is
Which just
consistent.
means that his, I mean,
He's
in
consistent.
reality, it is consistent. If you think about it, though, because if he's the same yesterday and today and forever, if that behavior has happened before, it can and will happen again.
What
Um,
Mount Vesuvius in uh, what was that Italian place that had Mount Vesuvius? I mean
Pompeii.
Pompeii, yeah. So those guys probably could have been huge sodomites. You never know. Um, maybe not.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
what prompted this whole thought was
good
I've been
evening,
doing a lot
by
of
the way.
thinking on like,
Whoever's here just stalking us.
yeah,
What's up? Hi. Say hello. Act like a human. Pretend that you actually exist because we see you're one viewer. Make yourself more than just one viewer and identify yourself in this realm of humanity. All right, go ahead, Charles. I'm sorry.
no, it's fine. So what got me started thinking on the whole thing was the days of Noah and the days of Lot, like where he talks about in Matthew, where Jesus talks about in Matthew, how it's going to be when the Son of Man returns. It's going to be like in the days of Noah.
Hmm.
People are going to be being married, given in marriage, blah blah blah. But the second correlation, because everybody wants to point out with that one that it's all about giants and Nephilim, and the world is going to be chaotic, and there's going to be these crossbreeds running everywhere and everything. And I'm like, okay, I can see where you're going with that thought
Maybe,
process.
maybe
That's
not.
fine.
That
But
that's so
the
not even the
second,
point.
no,
Even that if that's part of the reality that could be, that's not the point.
yeah, and the second thing that he mentions is it's going to be like in the days of Lot.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay, so now we start to draw what was similar in Lot's day and what was similar in Noah's day. Number one would be that there are very few righteous people,
Okay.
and number two is that wickedness abounds.
But
And
here's the thing about Noah's time too: comfort and illusion of safety.
yes, and the other thing that's interesting to note, which absolutely 100,000% destroys the pre-tribulation rapture
Yeah.
theology, is that who were taken away and who were saved in those days. The wicked were destroyed and the righteous were saved. The righteous were the ones that remained on the earth,
Hmm.
not the wicked. Like, so, like,
The pre-tribulation comes from and I'm not a proponent of it by any means. I learned in my Hebrew class that pre-trib is basic heresy, but
yeah,
that's what my
that's a great way to put it.
that's what my Hebrew professor that's what he said. I really, not that I just base everything I believe off my Hebrew professor, but he was a good guy, and I studied more, and his logic was pretty straight on. But basically, it comes from this concept of people believing that God wouldn't allow his people to suffer, which, if that were true, you would have to have some evidence for that to be true. Maybe, okay, maybe not. That's not always the way that God operates. Let's just say, so I take that back
There
specifically.
would there would there would kind of sort of be some examples of that having been
No,
true.
that's not.
Yeah.
It's the fact that so much evidence exists that denies
Contrary
that
to
that
that. Yeah.
denies that claim, that makes that extremely unreasonable to believe. Specifically, just the way that all of the disciples died. Just that alone,
Yeah.
let
For
alone
Israel being in
the
captivity in
last
Egypt for 400
2000
years.
the last 2000 years of history are more than substantiating against that as a reality. Somebody like uh man, I forgot his name.
Well,
Can't
even Martin Luther.
Well, Martin Luther's a good example, but the more modern guy, Nabil, I forget his last name, Nabil, that died of cancer. He was a theologian. He was a pastor slash speaker, writer. He had tons of YouTube followers and did speeches and all this stuff. Anyway, he was a solid dude. Loved Jesus. Died well. Um, you know, it was rough the way that he went and everything, but he's a good example for, he suffered. There was some suffering there, and it wasn't rational suffering. It was irrational suffering. What I mean by that, it was cancer. He
Mm,
wasn't suffering at the hands of abusers because he was a Christian. He was suffering at the hand of the fallen world. So, which is cancer, right? So
mhm.
anybody that tries to be retarded enough to say that God wouldn't let his people, his children, suffer, he's going to gather them up, take them, keep all the horrible, scary things that are going to happen from happening to them. Well,
Well, and
you you
they take
you haven't been paying
one,
attention.
yeah, they take one section of Revelation to justify that, and that it says that his people are spared from the wrath. And I'm like, okay, I can buy that. He spares his people from the wrath.
What is the
What
wrath?
part of the tribulation does the wrath come?
What no?
At the
What is
very
no?
end.
What even is the wrath? See, because when I hear that, I'm like, well, yeah, duh. Because the fact that you're saved means that you won't have to face the wrath, the only wrath that matters, not your bodily harm. The
The
wrath of
second
the
death,
wrath
yeah.
of the wrath of God is eternal punishment. Of course they're spared. Like, it's not about physical pain. Otherwise, you'd have to really do some explaining for how and why tens and hundreds of millions of Christians over the last 2,000 years have suffered in the ways that they have,
Well,
both.
let's just, I mean, even limiting it, even limiting the wrath as it's stated in Revelation to the period of Revelation. Let's just go ahead and say that it's limited to the 7 years of the actual physical tribulation on earth, right? Give or take. Like, let's just give it a seven. Whether it is an actual 7 years or not
Yeah,
is
yeah,
irrelevant for the sake of this argument. Let's just go ahead and break it up into the time periods of like the seals being broken, the trumpets being blown, blah blah blah. At the very end of the tribulation is when God's wrath is poured out on the world, when he destroys everything and says it's done, it's over. Let's just go ahead and throw it out there that that's the period that his people are spared from.
yeah,
Still means they sat through literally all of the rest of it.
yeah. It's not that everything has to be logical. I hate to keep saying the logical thing, but
Yeah.
I mean, most of what God says actually does have a flow of reason and logic to it. Every now and then it's like, well, I didn't expect that. That was kind of, I mean, when Jesus cursed that tree for not having fruit, it's actually kind of logical, but it is also hysterically unexpected too. And
Yeah.
speaking of people that talk only about God's grace,
Mm,
you got to bring up Jesus and the tree. You're like,
yeah.
yeah, but that tree, it didn't ever hurt anybody. It was just a tree. I mean, God made that tree. I mean, who? What? I'm not who is Jesus to curse a tree, but like, on the
Well, it's
other hand,
also
I mean, it was.
interesting as the
But
time frame
think
when
of
he cursed it.
okay.
It's interesting because he just got done driving people out of the temple,
Hmm.
and he walks over. He's probably exhausted from flipping tables and being mad and whipping people.
Yeah,
He walks out, walks up to this tree. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna have a fig. I'm just gonna calm down. I'm gonna sit here. I'm gonna eat a fig.
dude, and
Walks up to this tree.
fresh figs are like legit. By the way, I've had dried figs and I love dried figs, but fresh figs are like candy.
Yeah, we were gonna get one and try it because my kids are all like, "What's a fig?" And I'm like, "We need
Oh
to get one
man,
and try it."
they are legit. They are like it's like eating soft candy. It's super good.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
So he gets done with that, walks out, walks up to this fig tree. He's like, "You know what? I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna have a fig. I'm gonna calm down." Probably wasn't the best example for me to set, but needed to happen. Dad's happy with me. I'm good. Goes over to this tree. The fig is not bearing fruit in the season that it's supposed to be bearing fruit in. And Jesus is like, you know what? I'm done with you too. Like, it's just so ironic that he's frustrated and he's like, die. Like, just die. You're not doing anyone any good. Just die. Like,
I I just realized something. The stream is still named from the hot chili pepper thing from last night because when I went in, which is so stupid, man, the way that recurring streams works, oh man, it's annoying. Using Streamlabs. It's just not easy. Um, what do I need to do here? I um I had a title and now I've okay, I can figure this out. Give me a second.
mhm,
You can just riff on some randomness, but
okay. Well, while we're doing randomness,
um
yeah, I don't know. There was a random thought I had earlier this morning that I was thinking about, and it didn't last very long, but it was a biblical thought, which is, I suppose, a good thing. Um, oh man, what was it? Oh, it was on like patriotism,
this is
and I was thinking about what you said about the American flag and pledging and so on and so
ah
forth.
yes, that was a topic I wanted to talk about on Friday. That's right.
But yeah, it was. I was thinking about that earlier and patriotism and how like patriotism, like in its root form, like what is it? Like what's patriotism even mean? Well, in the Latin, it comes from the son of a country. That's what a patriot is the son of a country. And it's
Okay,
like
like pater being father of the father. Wait, so you said son of a what?
it's the son of a nation or the son of a country.
Ought. I wonder what ought means specifically, but yeah. Okay, interesting.
So I got to thinking about that. And when you say I'm a patriot, and Preacher Bear said this to me one time, and he said, I can guarantee you that you are a patriot, but it may not be in the way that you think you are. And I was like, maybe, maybe not. And I was thinking like to the United States, like, are you a patriot? And I'm like, I could give a crap less about that garbage. Like, I'm a son of the living God. I don't have any other title that's
Yeah.
necessary for me. Like, but he's like, so do you belong to a kingdom? And I was like, oh, I see where you're going with this. He's like, you are a patriot. It's just not for the nation that you think you belong to.
Mhm. Okay, so that's an interesting juxtaposition
Hmm. That's
because
what my that's the connection my brain made this morning, like super randomly, and I was like, whoa, that's cool.
so I have a higher allegiance than to the flag of this United States
Hmm.
is the way that you could put it. My allegiance is to the king of the universe, not to the,
Yeah,
not to this country.
I
And
already
and
have a king. Like,
and uh and here's the thing about that, because all these things I always prepare and plan and expect and all this craziness. I fixed the name of our stream, so
cool.
hopefully um hopefully people will come hang out and say hello. Supposedly there's one person here, but nobody's
It's
liking.
YouTube. It's recording us for the sake of
I know.
spying.
All right, so I was going somewhere with this. Okay, so when
I'm just
somebody,
kidding, random person. You're not YouTube. I'm not trying to be rude.
I know, right? I don't know. I just wish they'd say hi. I mean, that's the main point.
Well, I mean, they
Um,
could be somebody that's like listening in their car too. Like
I know,
that's a
or
thing
at
that
work,
happens.
or at work. All right, so when somebody asks, well, I mean, aren't you thankful to live where you live and have the freedoms that you have? You wouldn't have that if it weren't for the blood, sweat, and tears of um, our military and the values. And well, obviously, a lot of that's very debatable these days. With
Yeah, I was gonna say it could be 100% just God's grace. Like,
it could be so, but
yeah,
here's the other thing about that. It's like, well, would you here basically, okay, fine, fine. You're jaded. You're like that. I get it. Fine. Well, the point of the matter is, are you going to fight against America either actively or passively by inactivity, or like would you stand on America's side if there was a war, or would you stand, well, in a lot of ways, there are people that would actively fight and are fighting against America. So the irony is you're worried if somebody refuses to pledge allegiance to the flag and you're worried about that person, you're worried about the wrong person.
it's the truth. That is so true. And that's my like. If you're asking me like, would I, if someone were to take up arms against me in the town that I live in, would I defend myself and my neighbors to the best of my capacity against them? Yeah, absolutely, I would.
And would you do that because they're Americans? Well, no,
No,
not necessarily.
I don't care what nationality they are. Like, they're
If
people.
if my neighbor's a illegal alien, I'm not gonna like treat him.
Shoot that guy first. Like, I mean, I'm like, no, he has, he has just as much right to live and breathe air on this planet that I do. I mean,
However, to set the record straight, I understand nationalism and protecting borders and nations. It is funny. It is a funny idea. I'm going a little Trumpy on that, but
mhm.
the concept of a nation is about as funny as when a child in your household says that that's their bedroom and
Yes.
you're not allowed to come in. It's about as funny as that. And you're
Hmm.
like, "Well, you own the house and objectively speaking, I mean, they don't have a right to say so." They do. They conquered that area. They also have squatted that area. There's a lot of rational ways to explain why they're actually right by our definitions that we use and the way that we understand land ownership and all that good stuff. A a tiny child saying that that's their bedroom and that that's their house makes literally as much sense as folks that came with guns and whatever else with force and hypothetically a moral fortitude, a set of rules and order. Hypothetically,
Hmm.
it, I think all of that's a moot point when you think about it in the broad, in the big picture.
Well, like,
It's all very
and an
funny.
easy way to draw a juxtaposition between that and reality is, okay, so you own your land, you own your house, technically, as much as you can own anything because it doesn't belong to you. Um, Even in the best of circumstances, you're just a tenant that's been given ownership of something by God to take care of it. Um,
You
because that is literally the reason you were put on earth.
you have
Like,
to everything has to go back to him because it's like, well, listen here, Sonny. You sound like a moron right now because what you're saying is that you don't actually own that land, blah blah blah. But the fact of the matter is, there is a government and there is a military that allows you the opportunity to not have people come upon the place that you're residing, and that is what you should be allegiant to. And
well,
and
but
that
here's the real.
that mentality of, well, it's this it's this nice fabricated system that we get
That
to
makes you
that we get to live
feel.
within, that makes us
Yeah.
feel like we own this place, America or whatever the case.
Well,
And it's true to a up to a point. It's true. And
and but the reality of it is, if you dig deep enough into the legal system and the legal code, you can't actually own your property because, you want to know how I know you can't own your property? Stop
taxes,
paying your
well,
taxes.
yeah,
They'll come take it from you in a heartbeat,
yeah,
even if it's paid off, even if you legally don't owe a mortgage on it.
because the taxes are really the eternal link between the land and the ones who protect the land as an organization, which
Quote
is
unquote.
America.
But the reality of it is, if a plane from another country legally could fly over, even if they weren't planning on attacking you,
Go
and
ahead.
could blow up your land,
Uh huh.
they're not protecting you.
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, within there's obviously like a margin of within reason, so to speak. They're not God.
Well,
Um,
obviously, but
but
what I mean
here's
is,
the
it's like at
question.
any time the government can come take it away from you. And if that's true, then
But
you don't own it.
in pragmatically, and it's interesting how Grace led us here.
Yeah.
But you own a property. Doesn't matter how big. You just own a property, and somebody from Sri Lanka walks onto your property. They have no citizenship, right?
Hmm.
They literally just basically beamed themselves over.
Well, let's just say, for the sake of saying, they're visiting with somebody from another country. They don't understand the laws at all of our country
They
because you
claim
could
your
just walk
land.
through the jungle and whatever,
They
right?
claim
Over
your
there.
land and they say that they are the rightful owner because they set foot on the land and it's now their land. They say so. We do live in a place that will prevent that from being a reality and from from from
More or
becoming
less.
from becoming something. There are exceptions, such as with squatting and those psychopathic, bureaucratic nonsense. How the heck did anybody ever think that squatting was okay? Somebody made provisions for that at some point in time because I guess they're retarded. And it was probably a liberal because they were probably like, well, like,
Well, it was probably a conservative back in the day, but that's more like what liberals are now. So, like,
it was probably somebody who's like, well, like the homeless people, and like if there's a home that like nobody's a lot of likes for the record, if you notice, and like
yeah,
the homeless person like needs a place to stay, and like the the homeowner like never has been there for like years and years, and like it's just like sitting there, and it's just a home, and like I mean it's a home, so like if they go live there and then they like make the place better and stuff, then may as well be theirs. And like I don't know, that's not very
you sound
conservative
like a
slash
really educated AOC right now.
um it just sounds like not something anybody that would be a conservative or nationalist, I don't know, it just doesn't sound right. But
Listen, homeless people need houses too, guys.
they do. And the what it is interesting when you look at the vacancy rate of housing in America and you look at the homeless, literally 1%. So we've got like three, what are we at? 360, 380? What, I don't know
Hmm.
what we're at now. I don't know our population. I haven't looked for
380 ish.
okay, so it's gone up. 360 is the number still in my brain, so it's been a couple of years. Um, so 3.8 million ish, let's say 4. There's 4 million homeless people however, let's look it up. Let's look it up. How many empty homes are there? It is awkward. Not you don't no. No, stop it. Don't no. You don't need to give all the homeless people a bunch of free homes. That's a terrible idea. It wouldn't last. I'm not saying that. However, however, it is interesting that there is probably somewhere, especially if you like double and triple people up in houses that are
Hmm.
more than big enough. There's plenty of space. There's plenty of space for everybody to have a roof over their head in this country. Not in all countries, but in this country there is. And yes, I know there's out of that 4 million, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands, possibly half of the homeless people that don't want a roof. Not because they love drugs so much, they just love the lifestyle so much that it's not even something
It's
that
not a burden. Yeah.
it's not something they're interested in. And hopefully, I mean, most of you guys probably already know what I'm talking about, that there's plenty of people that don't. Number of vacant homes in the United States. Um, ooh, do you see how bright my face just? I look like
Yeah.
Moses. Let me switch over to you. So
Beaming like Noah
Moses, man, Moses. You
and
know,
Noah.
came down from the mountain. Why did Noah beam? I don't remember all that.
Oh, I guess it's from extra biblically endorsed text. It said when Noah was born that his skin shone and his father was scared of him.
Oh. Okay, so yeah, so exactly. See, I look up the words. This is what I looked up. Number of vacant homes in United States.
7 words.
And yeah, and the second result is an article from trofire.com. I don't know what in the world, but they say 3.5 million Americans. I'm just giving them a sarcastic accent for the heck of it. Three and
Yep.
a half million Americans are homeless. 18.6 million homes are vacant. That is actually insane.
Hmm.
It is. Regardless of the, I mean this, regardless of the fact that even though that's 6 homes for every homeless person, that's also quite a few extra homes for a good portion of America. or for those of us that don't even have a deed to our name or any of that. But anyway, um, even if a homeless person would destroy their home in a short amount of time, that's still absurd. It really is. And not all the homeless people are like out of their mind. So there's some geniuses out there. I would say that the bell curve of homeless people is actually an inverted bell curve. I would say that there aren't very many people in the homeless spectrum in the average. That I would say that it's actually an inverted. That there are people that are homeless that are extremely intelligent, and then there are people that are homeless that are in the whole 60 to 85 range.
Hmm.
Most of the people below 60 are going to be dead or institutionalized. It's just you can't. You There's not a chance in the world if you're 59 or below that you're going to be able to finesse and feed yourself. It
Hmm.
is not happening. 60 is
Maybe if you had somebody looking after you constantly.
pretty much you have to have
Maybe.
a buddy
Yeah.
system on that. But I've known people in the mid 50s and low 50s, and we're talking 5-year old. No, not even like we're talking 3 and 4-year old at a 50. It's just absurdly low. It's just absurdly low. You're talking force anyway. We don't need to get into all that,
Right.
um, but yeah, yeah, I've looked at that before. Those numbers, it's interesting, and not interesting at the same time. We have 2 viewers. We constantly are having people show up tonight and not say hi. I'm going to call you out and say you're rude. Maybe I should just call you names, but by the grace of God, I'm going to stop at the word rude.
Oh my goodness.
um, our topic tonight was about grace, guys, and um, I invited um, several people onto the group chat tonight, and this is what happened. There was this dude that was friends supposedly on Instagram or something with Jeremy that emailed me, got my email somehow through and by Jeremy, emailed me and was like, "I really love what you're doing on your channel, bro. I would love to be a part of one of your live streams. Um, would it be okay to invite me sometime?" I replied, I was like, "That sounds great. Fine." And I've invited him 3 weeks, maybe four, but at least three. This being at least the third, if not the fourth. None, obviously. I'm just like,
Hmm.
you were so excited. I guess it just didn't work out. Whatever. But
Camera shy.
so we had 2 viewers. Now it's down to one. I'm doing a good job scaring away the viewers because every time there's viewers, and it's back up to two. It went down two to one, 1 to 2.
They went to go hit the like button, man.
That's Hey, that's what you're supposed to do. I did start this video off by saying, slap the like button.
Yeah,
Um,
that I love it when people do that. They're like, "Hey, go slap that like button right now, right there. It's right there. See it? It's right there.
my
Like
dude,
button."
my dude that nobody else likes, Davey 504. I say nobody, like nobody that I'm friends with likes Davey 504. I like stupid humor, so whatever. I like VLDL. I just like some of the goofy PG 13ish humor. I don't know why. I don't know. Let me
Mm.
let me cry in my hands real quick. I'm just kidding. Um, but yeah, man, I listened to two of Black Pilt's videos today. One being the ham radio, and another was about it was a recenter, recent-ish, maybe July 4th, I think is what it was. The one
Hmm.
on not desensitization, it was tolerance. It was all about tolerance and his level of personal vulnerability about his inner struggles with when he was a kid and what he went through listening to certain music like Nine Inch Nails and watching movies that friends got him in to see and stuff. And he talks about that kind of stuff and how he felt like there was that inside voice, that voice inside himself, his conscience, God, telling him that it is wrong. Stop it. Like, this isn't good for you. And the way that he broke it down, and I believe yeah, definitely the tolerance video. He's like, because he knows atheists listen to his channel too, which because he must
Hmm.
dialogue with them on a regular basis. And it's really, I think it's really hysterical how much atheists spend, how much time atheists will spend watching and learning from not all, but certain Christians.
Hmm.
Um, it's like they want the truth. Some of
Well,
them just want to
I
justify
have this
their
person
sin,
on,
but
yeah,
that
yeah, I have this person on my channel that does
yeah,
that
yeah,
all the time. Like, she is subscribed to my channel, blatant atheist, like comes out and is like, there is no God.
yeah, yeah,
And I'm like, I post nothing but Christian content. Like,
yeah, yeah.
absolutely nothing but Christian content. Everything I put out has something to do with God. Like,
Well, I mean,
and
it's funny because I mean, I'm not trying to say that Catholicism is like atheism. So no offense that I'm bringing up Catholicism right after talking about atheism, but I'm definitely not a Catholic, and I'm not even sympathetic. And in fact, I want to do an interview with one of my friends from a prior employment when I worked at a group home. He's a buddy that lives down in Missouri, and he used to be Anglican, and he's converted to Catholicism. I met him on the way moving here. We hung out for a little while, and it was like right before we left that I found out that I didn't know. I thought he was still going to like an Anglican church or something. It's like all good. Anglican is fine with me. I don't really have a big deal with it. But he was like, no, I like did a lot of reading and research. This is what he said to me. I did a lot of reading and research, and I just found out that it's true. It's and it's all true. And I converted, and that's how he said it. And I was like, okay, you and I are gonna be. I didn't say this to him then, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, you and me are gonna be on YouTube. We're gonna have an interview, and I've got I've got one of my questions specifically ready, and I guess it's what I think it's what I texted you. I was texting you about the Catholic thing, right?
mhm.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So one of the big questions, and maybe this is a little spoiler alert. I'll go big screen real quick. Maybe it's a little bit of a spoiler alert for what one of the questions I plan on asking in the Catholic interview. But this is my question. I'll say it now for the record. Why is, speaking of God's grace,
Mhm.
why is God's grace not big enough to purify someone and redeem someone from the sin of divorce? So the Catholic Church will send you a letter. Who said this recently? I just heard this from somebody. Oh yeah, it was a customer on my job. Um, so I was talking to a customer. Actually, talked to customers with these amazing headphones. Uh, by the way, guys, this video is sponsored by Plantronics. Um, yeah, they paid us a couple 8-figure paychecks over the course of the next several months, as long as I mentioned Plantronics, because they said that they would give me $300,000 per subscriber that I have. So it's pretty good equation. So anyway,
They give me 300,000 pennies.
they would not give me 300,000 specks of dust. for for even a
wooden nickels.
for even a million subscribers. But anyway, I do like my I do like my Plantronics non-sponsored headphones though. They were a great eBay buy. Uh,
They wouldn't give me 300,000 grains of sand.
no, they wouldn't. Um, so anyway, it was a customer I was talking to that their I think it was their son or their brother or something like that, family member was at a church. They got a letter in the mail that told them they were no longer welcome to belong to the church or even show up at the church because they discovered and realized that they were unfit and unworthy because of the divorce. Okay? Now, keep this in mind. This is somebody that was married. They were married to each other, and this was a historic divorce. Like it had happened like 20 years ago, kind of thing.
Hmm.
Okay, and they had been going to this church for, from what I heard, a couple of years, right? And they just discovered somehow, some way, right? So anyway, my question to a Catholic is, why isn't God's grace, His salvation, His ability to cleanse us, make us new people, new creatures, and His sanctification that takes place through the course of our lives? I mean, in that case specifically,
Mhm.
what's the purpose of asking the Father for forgiveness in at all if that's the result? If there and that I mean, and that's why every single time, and by the way, for the record, only one person's here, nobody else. I mean, maybe 15 or 20 people watch this video, maybe not. I'm banned from Owen's backup channel.
Hmm.
I can't chat. So it makes it a little annoying to be there because he'll say this stupid phrase that makes me want to throw somebody off of a cliff. Um, and this phrase is, that is a mortal sin. And I'm in the chat, and then later I realize, oh yeah, Owen Benjamin Live, I'm banned from for unknown reasons. Um, what's his name that came on the stream that one time? He's one of his moderators.
Oh
He
yeah.
had a child. He has a beard and he looks just like Larry King. Not Larry King, the old guy, but
That yeah.
our Larry King. Um, West Side Bear. So West Side Bear even advocated for me at one point and was like, "Dude, unban Gospel Bear." And Owen saw it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. West Side, intoxicating knows all about it. What's up? Um, so I'm in the chat going insane, like, and nobody can see it because I'm banned. I'm like, all sin is mortal. All sin leads to death. And I mean, the Catholic psyop it's insane. And
Yeah, and that's another misconception too. While we're on the topic of
I got you.
misconceptions with grace, is that oh, if you're a Christian, it saves God. Jesus' blood saves you from death. No, no, it doesn't. Sin will make you die, regardless. It saves you from the penalty of sin,
Which
which
is
is
death.
which is the second death,
Okay.
not being cast into the lake of fire after the judgment.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Because of sin, you will die. Like your physical body is going to die. Like
Yes, because there
doesn't
were
save you from death.
only two and a half exceptions to that. There's this one mysterious third that I can't seem to find, but that's probably
Are
because
they talking about well, I mean it would be well no.
it's only two. But there's this
Two would be
third.
Moses or
No,
not
no,
Moses.
it's
Elijah,
a lot. Yeah, Elijah,
Enoch,
Enoch, and then some
Lazarus.
No, because
Would
Lazarus.
be the half, right? Because he
No,
did die.
he brought other people back to life. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about Melchizedek is a mysterious example because Melchizedek. I don't think that there's. I think it's just a. I think that it just doesn't record his death. He also doesn't have any recorded offspring. I think is that correct?
No, because he was like the term Melchizedek is actually misused. There was a scholar that actually did a really cool breakdown of like the actual Hebrew meaning of Melchizedek, and it's actually two separate words. It's actually Melchizedek, and it's a king priest
Yeah,
is
well,
what it stands
righteous.
for.
It means righteous king, but
Right.
Melka is king, and Zedekiah is righteous.
Yeah.
Um,
But it's a priestly
or
order.
I'm
It's
sorry,
the order
I
of
said
Melchizedek.
Melka. What I meant to say was Melech. There's a difference between. There's a weird thing. There's a weird thing about the word, and I noticed this when I was taking Hebrew and Greek. Zedekiah is the Hebrew for righteous. The Greek for righteous is like dia dia diasu. It's got the same consonants but in a different order, and it's just awkwardly similar, which geographically and stuff, it's kind of confusing how that would have ever even happened. That is just coincidence. It's not really that important,
Hmm.
but yeah, righteous king is the literal two words that
Right.
you'd be referring to.
So
But
that's why when they bring up that Jesus is a priest in the order of Melchizedek, he can only be he can only be he is the only one that could ever fulfill that order.
mhm.
So a
This
lot of
person you
people
were
will
listening to
assume,
wasn't trying to say that Melchizedek wasn't a real person, though, right?
well,
Because
it's not that he wasn't a real person because he was.
that wouldn't be
It's just,
consistent. Go
yeah,
ahead. Yeah, go
because
ahead.
he would have been Jesus in the flesh. Because that would
Oh,
have been the only one that he would have given a tithe to.
yeah, the Melchizedek hypothetically being a precursor to Jesus, like that was just him like testing the waters or something or other. It's a weird idea, but I've definitely heard that. That's a
Well, it's interesting to
it's
note that
weird.
it wasn't also the only time that he would have met Jesus or walked with Jesus,
Who is he?
Abraham. If it was
What are you talking about?
like he when the two angels and the stranger appeared to him
Okay.
and told him that Sarah was going to have a baby. It says that he walked with God.
Yeah, yeah.
I have to assume that that was God in the flesh, and it wasn't God the Father, because the only one that God the Father ever revealed himself to was Moses.
Hmm. But only his
Yeah, only his
backside.
backside.
However, is an interesting poetic meaning. Not not that it's figurative,
Yes.
but a potential alternative meaning to his backside, excuse me, could have literally meant that God made himself present, left, and his the remnants of his presence was that backside.
Yeah.
So don't think backside literal physical, think backside temporal,
Yeah.
which is hypothetically, according to Hebrew scholars and stuff, the way that the language works in that specific scenario. It doesn't. I mean, maybe he was showing Moses' shoulder, sure,
But either or,
and it doesn't.
it
It's
was
not
the
really that
only
important.
person. that God the Father is reported to have
Exactly.
showed himself to.
At least in some way.
Yes.
It doesn't.
So
Yeah.
that goes to say that if God in the flesh was with Abraham, talking with him, walking with him, it was highly likely that that was Jesus in the flesh, like walking with Abraham, just talking with him, because it says that they were friends, like friends, like they literally talked with each other and were friends, like my
Yeah.
friend Abraham, like okay, like you say you were friends, I believe you, like you talked like you knew each other and were friends, like so, like it leads me to believe that he would have recognized him, but he recognized him in that one instance as being a righteous king. And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, but it's interesting because this is another thing that where people get hung up on giving tithes. Well, Abraham gave a tithe, but what
Uh-huh.
did he give a tithe of? He gave a tithe of his spoils of war. He never gave anything that he owned to him. He gave him a tenth of the spoils of war. It
Yeah.
specifically says it. And I was like, that's fascinating on
Yeah.
a lot of levels.
So tithing is an interesting topic, but I think if you have a little bit more time, this is one of the things that I think 99% of people are extremely frustrated about in church.
Mm,
And that is when people go to a sermon, they listen to a sermon, and they say, um, and Jesus said to love the Lord God with all your heart. I'm sorry, it's the verse specifically where it says, and all these things will be added to you.
mm,
Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. That's the sound bite from the verse, okay? And a
yep.
pastor will be like, seek first kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. And all these things, everything that you need. And of course, they're not necessarily saying Lamborghinis and retarded stuff, right? They are
Most of the
saying,
practical people in the world would be like, the things that I need. You mean like food and clothes and a
yeah.
house, right?
So,
Like,
in a lot of ways, these pastors are meaning those things, the things that you need. But they say that and they say, Hallelujah. And then the sermon's over. And and some people hear that sermon and are like, thank God. And some people hear that and go, wait, I'm sorry, excuse me, teacher, excuse me, teacher, excuse me. You said I need, yeah, thank you for, yes. You said I need to seek first the kingdom. First of all, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier.
what the heck is
What does
that?
seek mean? What does seek even mean? What does kingdom mean? Connect those ideas. What does it even mean or look like practically to
To
seek the
seek the
kingdom?
kingdom, right?
Oh, and then it mentions this big word called righteousness. Well, gosh, now I need to understand. First of all, I need to understand what does seek mean? What does it look like? What does it smell like? What can we identify it somewhere? Can we go, oh, that he's seeking. He's he's seeking. By the by the way, I would argue that a person in a deer stand is not seeking.
They're waiting.
No offense.
Yeah,
No
they're waiting.
no offense. So maybe some of you are like, that's retardedly obvious. I'm just like, well, I mean, come on. I mean, we need some practical ways of understanding the scripture, though, right?
The
Trying to,
seeking, well, and that's a good metaphor, actually. The seeking came when you scouted the location to put the stand in, but then
okay,
you stopped seeking and started waiting.
yeah. So it might be a bad metaphor. It might be a bad metaphor just based on the nature of how you hunt it's not very easy to sneak up on a deer and slit their throat. Let's be honest. If it
I want to
was,
meet the hunter that does that though, because that's pretty awesome.
me too. I would definitely,
You are a
um,
savage. Like
I wouldn't bow to the guy, but I would definitely,
you get
I would
props.
listen. I would shine the guy's shoes for free, but I won't
What kind
bow
of
to
shoes are you?
him.
Like, wow, man, you have a whole different idea of what hunting is than I do.
He's like coming up to the deer. Come here, come here, come here. You know, that's kind of
That's
evil.
like that's like the Indians like jumping out of trees onto deer's back and like stabbing them repeatedly until they die.
Dude, I guess that happened.
Yeah,
Could you imagine dismounting a tree, timing it just right? Oh man, that's awesome. Anyway, the point of the matter is it's extremely frustrating to be in any sermon at all where you walk away and go, "Well, that was some really good news. I have
but I have
no
zero idea
idea
how to apply that.
how
Yeah.
I'm going to do that. Seek first his kingdom and all his righteousness." Well, I like that part where it talks about adding all those things to me, but maybe I should. I mean, that's a whole nother kind of thing where
That's a good topic for next week. What does it look like to seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness?
it's
Like, what is that?
one of the most relevant topics for any Christian period.
Because I mean, I have a good idea, and I'm sure you have a good
And the
idea of
other
what it
thing
is, but
about and all these things will be added to you, my comment for anybody that's like, listen, I lack a lot, and it would be really nice if God would come through on some of the things he says he's going to give me because I'm pretty sure I am seeking first his kingdom. It's well, first, I mean, I'm not trying to rob the topic, our future topic or anything but I'm sure that we could probably spend 15 years on that topic, so I'm not going to rob anything from it. But but the
it's
point
a
of the
pretty
matter is,
deep topic again.
God is not um, transactional. You can't you can't pay him off. So first and foremost, you got to get that out of your head. So it's not, well, I seek to your kingdom, God. First, I abandon everything, even food and water. I seek your kingdom, God, and righteousness. I mean, God, you got to admit, I was pretty righteous. Um, and
Well, on
there's
that topic right there, like we just read in, I want to say it was Luke about the parables. Yeah, Luke 8:18.
okay,
Um, it was the parables of the different people praying
okay,
and the necessity of prayer, and how God related it. And he said, like, the guy that would, God, I mean, look at me. I am nowhere near as bad as these people. I mean,
there's literally a verse in the Bible
yeah,
about that. Like,
no, that's what I mean. Like the parable was like, I'm not as good as, or I'm not as bad as these people. I don't do this stuff. I don't do that stuff. I give tithes. I do this. God, you owe me.
yeah,
Versus
yeah,
the guy
exactly.
versus the publican that's like, God, I am basically a worthless human being. I can't even look at the sky when I pray because I know I'm awful.
Yeah.
Please don't condemn me to hell. Jesus is like, that's the guy that went home justified. And
Sorry,
it's
I
like,
was looking up and I'm like seeing this random stick through the roof. Hey, okay, we need to finish this topic because I've got a random thought, construction thought.
yeah. But I mean, I mean, I've read that before, but it was just like, wow, like that's intense.
Well,
Like,
pride's what's the word? Insidious? Is that the right
yeah,
word? I think pride is very insidious, and the humble pride and all that. The black pilled guy in one of, I think it was yeah, the tolerance one or maybe another one, but he was talking about he used to work with this dude that claimed to be a born again Christian, all this stuff, and he always was like supposedly talking about how horrible he used to be and how much drugs he used to do. Like, I did the most drugs. You wouldn't even believe how horrible, and like basically glorified his past
Mhm.
in a process of doing humble bragging
Yeah.
or a reverse humble brag. But um it's interesting. Those people that have like unreal, like, and I was strapped to a shark with dynamite and I fell into a volcano, like those people with testimonies that are
Yeah.
like, and then I was so addicted to heroin that I shot up my own eyeball just to see what the high would be like. Like, I was so addicted to drugs that I literally lit my body on fire, like, just to see if I knew what it was like to be the devil. Like, these are the kinds of testimonies you hear some people tell, and it's like, that's good. God is good. I don't know about you, but I already know God is good. You're freaking me out, bro.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, it is
I
interesting because
literally had a dream where I saw hell, and it was like an eagle, and you're like, "What?" And okay, keep going, I guess. Like, and
so.
the eagle flew over this dark chasm, and I saw it, and Jesus was the eagle in my dream. Like,
Well, I'm
oh
just
boy,
talking about the people that talk about how horrible they were before they met Christ, but they're like bragging about it. Like, anyway, it's
yeah.
just it's like it's the
It's like a I was
ultimate,
the worst person ever
it's
competition.
the
Yeah,
ultimate nonsense virtue signaling. Um, and it doesn't impress anybody. And Devin Stack was just like, you're turning people away from Christianity, not towards. You're not helping anybody.
well, Olivia Catherine just did a video about that not too long ago,
I don't know
and it
who that
was
is.
she's kind of a like sassy, sarcastic, funny, maybe 20-year-old.
Oh, okay.
And she's like how like Christian comedy like gives all Christians a bad names, and they're like ruining things. Like Christians ruin everything. Like,
Dude, dude, listen, that is why, that reason right there, by the way, is exactly why more people need to listen to Black Pilled. And I have his, like, I haven't bought it yet, but I am going to buy his book and I'm gonna read it. But just because he's excellent with words. You can tell the dude is an author. I wouldn't be surprised if he wrote out a script for all of his videos because he chooses words very wisely. But anyway, my point in saying the reason that we think, after watching a bunch of black pilled stuff, I've become slightly moderately black pilled because I I think that the reason that we think that Christian comedy is corny is because we have been brainwashed into thinking that it's corny. And the hypothetically and very likely Christian comedy is probably funny, and just because it's righteous and avoids sinful and grotesque and overtly sinful
lewd.
themes and lewd, and there's another good word, but crass, more,
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it's not funny. There are exceptions to that because there are exceptions to that. However, it goes with music though, and movies and comedy. It's all Christian entertainment that has this broad sweeping um, perception of being cheesy and corny and bad acting, and I think it's a psyop. After
Well,
after
there's that
watching a
to
lot
it,
of
but
Black Pilled, I'm
there's
I'm thinking
also
that there's a huge psyop going on there that
yeah.
has convinced us that it's corny and cheesy, but in reality, it's almost like everything else, just missing the sin. And sin has been so elevated as cool and awesome that when it's not there, we're like, well, it's not there, so it's not cool. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
No, I get that. I get that. And weirdly enough, I just got an update on my phone that told me that there are new time zones available.
What does
I,
that
I
even mean?
I want to know what that means. I can't look at it right now because I'm obviously on this
Oh,
video.
well, I'll
But
look it up. I'll look it up for you. New time zones. What the crap?
yeah, I don't even know what that. I don't even know what. Like, don't they already have all the time zones defined? Like, I
No, because they're voting. Every state is voting. Like Florida is in debate. Florida, a portion of Florida is on Central Standard. I was on Central Standard in Pensacola. They wanted to vote to make all of Florida on Eastern Standard Time, which would affect literally millions of people that commute from Alabama to Florida or live in. Yeah, you get
yeah,
it.
I get it. Um, but on the topic that you were just saying, I get exactly what you're saying with that. But her point was that Christians aren't. I mean, not all, and she did make the caveat, not all, but a majority of Christian comedians, a majority of Christian music producers, a majority of people that produce content, memes, etc., that have a Christian theme to them.
Yeah,
They're not doing anything original. They're just copying something secular and saying that
sometimes
it's Christian, and it falls on its face because they take all the elements that make it popular in the secular world and take them out of it and then just rebrand it as Christian. And it's like, no, you just copied somebody else's work, took the things that made it appealing to the world and removed them. And now you're saying that it's either funny or witty or good. It's like,
yes,
no, just do original things and let them be good, and people will naturally appreciate it for what it is, like creativity, like creatively, and they're like, that was her whole point, is just like, stop copying other people and just be original.
for sure.
Like, our God created the world, and you copying a meme and calling it creative is not creativity. Like,
Let me
it's
point
not.
out let me point out, yeah, daylight savings time, I think is what that might be in reference to, by the way. Intoxicating said they should get rid of daylight saving time. They should, I agree. It's kind of foolish and it's like anyway, I
Only an idiot thinks that taking a rope and tying another, or cutting off part of a piece of rope and tying it onto the other end makes it longer.
yeah. It's like listen, part of the year well, we don't live our life off of sunlight anymore. That's really what it's all about.
Yeah, it's irrelevant.
Because if we
Yeah,
did, it would be the nature of, listen, you show up to work at 7 o'clock this part of the year, you show up to work at 6 o'clock this part of the year. If our life was off of the sunlight, that's how you'd have to do it. And that's how they did do it. And they were like, well, this 7 and 6 thing is nonsense. Let's just make it 7 all year and let's just coordinate the time. They did the hardest possible thing you could do, convince everybody to change their clocks.
the government taking the hard option. Say it ain't so.
So
Wow.
I was definitely going. Oh. So I was going to tell you my favorite meme, and I've been talking to the guys that I work with. We chat on Google Hangouts all day to communicate and make ourselves feel less
Isolated.
disconnected and all that. Um, because one of us lives in Oregon, one of us lives in Iowa, that'd be me, and then the other guy lives in Florida. So we're spread out across the U.S., but
Mm-hmm.
we work together, and anyway, it's fun. Um, dude, the meme "Am I a joke to you?" has to be the funniest meme of all time, in my opinion. So I told them, I mean, some of the memes, like you can make them up on the spot, and they're just not that funny. But there's just a ton, right? I told them I wake up naturally. every morning at 6 a.m. And I was like, my alarm clock, am I a joke to you? Um, but there's like that again, I know that's not that good. I get it. Um, I wear sandals every day, so my socks. Am I a joke to you? These are
No.
terrible. These are terrible examples of the am I a joke to you meme. Here's one off the internet. Yeah, I didn't make this one up. Um, a person commits a crime, cop kills the or doesn't kill the person, injures a person, doctor revives the person and brings them back to health, judge sentences person to death. Doctor, am I a joke to you? That's an example of the am I a joke to you meme. And it's for some reason it's my favorite of all the memes because it's so relatable and it's so applicable to so many things.
You
And
could do a bunch of Christian memes
I
about
know
that.
because there are, if you look up the am I a joke to you meme, there are hundreds about God. God creates man, and man creates gods. God, am I a joke to you? Like, I mean, it's as simple as that, and it's like they've got a point. This meme
Yep.
makes some sense. I just love I love the am I a joke to you? I just got sponsored. I just got a sponsored ad on Facebook for pre-written sermons.
Tell me they aren't listening.
Oh my gosh, no! Intoxicating masculinity said that. I don't. You know, I don't do Facebook. I get on Facebook once every 2 or 3 years. I haven't been on Facebook in super long time, so I don't.
I'm
I
on Facebook for one reason and one reason only.
Is it
For the
Farmunity?
for the memes.
Oh,
No, no, it's not. It's actually just for a group that I belong to.
gotcha.
So, and that's literally the only reason I'm on there. Otherwise, I would have deleted it ages ago.
You all don't wear or purchase birch sheet or what are they called? Rolling branch sheets or whatever.
Oh, Bowling Branch?
Bowling branch. Bowling branch. Nothing to do with sheets, right?
No.
Okay, that's good. I'm just being retarded. Um, okay, so next week's topic we might do on what does it even mean to seek first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness.
Be a great topic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, alrighty, let's go ahead and
How
just cut it off there then.
Here's my question though before we say goodbye. We have two viewers hypothetically.
Hypothetically,
Hypo-
one of them is YouTube spying on us. We
and one
know
of
it.
them is
You know it.
definitely
Everybody knows
definitely
it.
Jeremy. How how do we get that thing back up to 20? I posted the video on Minds and on Discord and on the Unbearables app, the forum app.
I think we might be able to get there if I posted a video in the morning on my channel
Do you have a lot of
saying
followers?
I have 186, but they're pretty they're pretty severe. Like, and I'm not sure a lot of them know that I'm on here once a week
Uh,
because I've had a lot of people like rightly like, when are you coming back? Like,
hmm,
so I don't think that a lot of them know that I'm here on Friday nights.
yeah.
So we might be able to get that number above and at least into the double digits if I just posted a thing on there on Friday morning saying, hey, Friday night, come hang out with us on Gospel Bears channel. Because he obviously has way more of the put togetherness on live streaming than I do, type deal.
Well, it took me a couple of minutes or weeks or whatever to figure out. He said my whole family is on there, so wait, what do you mean your whole family? Oh, on wait, watching the stream or I used to see Jeremy's son on here, but I guess Jeremy's son is trying to get A's in college or something like that. So,
What a
yeah.
waste of time.
I haven't seen him on my stream in a long time, which is good. Get, stick to the books. Stick to the books.
The
It,
book as well.
well, yeah, yeah, you really need that, obviously, first and foremost. But
Yeah. Well, I'll try an experiment next week and see if it helps at all.
yeah, because so far, I guess a couple of weeks ago we got up to like 5, maybe 6. But since I've moved here, because I had like a month hiatus where things got crazy and I just wasn't able to live stream anymore.
Relevancy, it goes down so fast.
What with if you lose your consistency, you lose your
Yeah.
momentum, it's gone. It's
Yeah.
like, but I mean, I've gone up 2 subscribers in the last couple of weeks, um, which is definitely a better trend because I lost like 20 or 30.
Yeah.
I was over 350.
Yeah.
So I lost 20 something subscribers just because of
Well, and probably the ability to actually just go randomly talk to people and stuff on Owen streams. Because I would get a lot of back subs from people for that too, and a lot of them stuck around. So
I'm confused by what Jeremy is saying. He said, "I'm sorry that I have a member bringing all my fans to your channel. Talk to text, that was terrible. Oh, talk to text, that was terrible. On Facebook. I'm sorry that. Oh, it doesn't matter because you tried to dictate that and it didn't come out right. It's all fine.
it's fine.
It's
Everybody's
fine.
fine.
It's fine. It's fine. All right. Well, you guys know what I'm gonna say, and some of you are probably in the habit of saying it with me, and you should, not because of me, but just because of God's word. 2, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And for those of you that are a little slow, because there's at least one of you out there, the reason that the Bible gives us 4 different qualities or characteristics or components of our existence, soul, mind, body, like strength, heart. The reason it gives you all these different words in scripture, just in case you're like, well, I don't need to give God that part of my life. It, they could, anyway,
He could have just said with everything,
with everything.
but yeah.
Just in case any of you are extra slow, I'm just saying all 4 of those different words are there. There's not a secret place of you that you should be holding back from the one who made you, knows you, predicts you, already knows
Yep.
that stupid, embarrassing thing you're going to do and did and will do again. He already knows. And you should love him with that part of you too. Anyway,
And as always, keep seeking truth, and you're gonna find it. That's right. It's my sign off line too.